how the resignation of White House spokesman Sean Spicer has ended a difficult week for President Trump. Members of his inner circle, including son Donald Trump Jr. and son-in-law Jared Kushner, are expected to face US Senate committees next week.
Well, in the meantime, efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare are still up in the air. Former White House staffer and US political commentator Professor Ed Blakely is here to share his insights. Ed, another interesting week out of the White House.
Well, I'm wearing a black tie. Sean Spicer, a member of our fraternity, is gone.
Yes.
Highly rated. At least I should honor him.
Well, let's start on that note then. Wasn't clear, although he has subsequently spoke saying it was his decision, he wasn't pushed, time to go after just 6 months in the job, replaced by Anthony Scaramucci. What do you make of his moving on?
Well, he's moving on because he cannot cover up for what's going on in the White House. So if the product isn't good, you look for a new package, and that's what they're doing. Somebody else to put out the message, rather than looking at the product, which is the presidency and the White House, they're looking at people who can make it more cosmetic.
But he had become a liability. He had become the story.
He had become the story. But almost that's a good thing, given all the other stories that are unleashed later on. The new man, though, is an interesting person in that he knows how to work the media. He'll probably be pretty good at it, but he's going to have a better story than what they have now to convince anybody.
Is he also slightly conflicted? I mean, he has been associated with supporting the Democrats in the past. He's also, been on Twitter in support of policies that now go against the position that Donald Trump has been espousing. So is there possibility that this could also lead us down a very interesting, thorny path?
Well, I think at least he'll present himself better, and going after the issues you're talking about don't rise to a big media event. He's really cosmetic. And he's going to try to put the best face on a very difficult situation. He's good at that. When he goes, though, all heck breaks loose because this is the last pillar. He's already turned against his own attorney general. So he's been looking for someone who could stop the bashing, but he promotes it by what he says and what he does.
Ed, let's talk about the latest tweet from Donald Trump in reference to his power to pardon. He says, while all agree the US president has complete power to pardon, why think of that when the only crime so far is leaks against us?
Wow. First of all, why is he talking about pardons? He's talking about pardons because the investigation is now turning on his relationship and his family's relationships with the Russians, not on the campaign. And I've thought for some time there's something more here. You don't get angry as he's getting, about a simple matter of someone saying something to the campaign or opening some emails. You become angry when there may be something about you. And the Russians seem to be playing that card. We have dirt on you, and we'll release it unless you play ball with us. You see it with the reopening of their buildings, etc. There's something going on here well beyond traditional diplomacy.
Now, we are expecting as well, of course, to have both Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, also Paul Manafort fronting various committees to be questioned about what was going on at the time. We also understand that finances are going to be probed by special counsel Robert Mueller. So more intensity around this as well.
Well, it's all coming together. We were looking at the campaign and emails first. And now it seems to be relationships, even with the highest level of the Russian government, over policy issues. And then it's coming down now to personal interactions. So this is not about the Republican Party, it's about Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's personal relationships with people in Russia. And this is what scares him, because they have something on him, and if that's uncovered, it's not going to make him look very good. What's your first thing? Let's do the pardons. Let's get people out so they can't testify.
So you're obviously looking forward to the next week when we may get some more information, but should we really expect much?
Well, this is a difficult situation in that if they tell all of the truth, it opens up more avenues of investigation. So there's a possibility of at least Trump Jr. declaring the Fifth Amendment or asking for closed-door hearings. That's what's making the Trumps nervous. It's too bad when you put your family in this kind of a situation where they have personal rights and all of a sudden they become public figures. And I think the lawyers are saying we're in a very dangerous territory here, because if he lies before Congress, now you have your own son in a pickle.
And this is overwhelming for the president, not the least because he's frustrated that his agenda is being swamped. He can't get things done. He's been in power now for some 6 months. What are his achievements?
Well, he appointed a Supreme Court judge. End of story. The travel ban is a joke because the travel ban he has on, the visa requirements were the same as the current travel ban. It's harder to get into Australia from those countries than it is the United States under the travel ban. The fence is gone, or wall is gone. Obamacare is really in a shambles. And it looks like the Republicans will have to rescue Obamacare or lose the next elections. So his agenda is pretty much on the sidelines.
So when you say they need to rescue Obamacare or they will lose the next elections, were you saying the senators' jobs are on the line?
No, the congressmen. They come up for election in a year and a half. And they cannot go out to their constituents and say, you have no health insurance anymore. We have given you nothing. They said repeal and replace. Trump is saying we're just going to repeal. If that happens, it's not so much that people who are healthy are harmed. It's their family members. If you have a family member over 65, they're really dependent on that health care. And if they're living in a rest home, it is paying for them to be there. Do you want mom coming back to live with you? Do you want to start paying the bills for people in their 80s and 90s? Right now, Obamacare is taking care of that.
But doesn't the buck stop with the senators, the Republican senators? As Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, has said, he's going to put pressure on those senators to try and get this bill through, although it looks highly unlikely.
Well, this bill will not get through. But what he said next is that we may have to work with the Democrats. That means repair, not repeal.
So is this all indicating that when it comes to what President Trump is actually offering, there's no substance, there's no detail, there's no direction for policymakers to go?
Well, the problem he has is he has to try to keep his job ahead of running the rest of the United States. And that's interfering with it. He is on, right now, there's a line being drawn in the sand. Mueller's drawing a line in the sand. Come forward or I kick you out.
He's also looking at tax cuts, sort of corporate tax cuts. That's a conversation we're having here in Australia too, of course. Infrastructure, what's happening as far as that's concerned? Because he wanted to start building things.
That's not happening. Excuse me. But the reason it's not happening is that he cannot get enough votes in both houses for a bill that would pass. And because he can't risk defeat. What is the infrastructure bill? It's really not just to spend money, but to form a trust. That means you have to collect new taxes to form this trust to do the infrastructure. The American people are for it, but the way you do it depends on how much privatization you want, etc. Can't get it through. That really takes real hard work with the Congress. He doesn't have anybody in the White House to do that work. So how can he get these things done? You have to have a team, you have to have strict directions, and you have to be working it every day. Tax cuts are not popular right now because it means the wealthy. And if the wealthy get tax cuts, then some members of Congress lose their jobs, when most Americans aren't getting pay rises. Why a pay rise for the rich?
Good question indeed. Well, Ed Blakely, we'll leave it there for this week. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for your time speaking to us on Weekend Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.